So, hello everyone, and welcome to the show, Real Stories, Real Healing Podcast. I'm Daisy Jones Brown. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a life coach with over 20 years experience in social service. I'm the owner of Brown Sugar Wellness, where we help women of color reset their wellness in 90 days using our boss models. Stories are a gateway to healing, and sharing your story sets you free and someone else too. There is power in the story. So let's get started today with our guest, Anita. So Anita, tell everyone a little bit about you. Where you from, what you like doing. Just introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Anita McPherson. I am born and raised in California, the northern part, close to, in between Sacramento and the Bay Area. Let me see. I originally started my career in banking, moved my way up the corporate ladder, and in finances and being an AV pre-manager. However, I had gotten sick with some chronic diseases as well as autoimmunes that really changed my world around and led me into being disabled, but also wanting a space of entrepreneurism. It literally 360'd my world. So I am now the owner of Virtual Handywoman. It's one of my businesses is Spoonie Vibes, which is more of an informational blog e-commerce store to help other people seek knowledge of wellness and trying to heal.
Wow, that's wonderful to hear. So as you talk about that, Anita, do you mind sharing your story with us? Like, do you mind telling us what happened or how you got?
Definitely. So I was always a very type A individual, always into everything, not one thing. I mean, even in high school, I played sport after sport after sport. I played Little League, baseball, and that all just progressed into my high school years as well. I played volleyball. There was never a moment of sitting down, right? And on top of that, I was in numerous clubs of like Future Farmers of America, Leo's Club, government, as well as pursuing like a steady load of courses, college courses. If I was being challenged, I wanted to go higher and higher, right?
Right.
And that followed me into my years of work, right? Like I just started as a teller. 6 months I was a banker, and 6 months after that I was a manager. Like I just excelled, and I was just go, as well as still being in the gym. And my biggest thing was I never knew the rest and restore process, right? I didn't have a concept of relaxation, right? Like I was just always go. I had ACL when I was 17, and I'm 2 weeks out of school, laying there because I had played soccer, so like I had mentioned, and I was also a cheerleader. And I went up in a stunt, and I went one way, another way, and I basically had I didn't completely rupture it. I had a light tear. And like I said, I didn't listen to the doctor. I didn't sit down and rest and restore and on it.
Right.
To where it finally had taken its toll and tore, right?
Yeah. A lot of athletes.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, I just going at this pace, right? And the company that I was working for really took advantage of that in the sense of, let's keep going, dangling that carrot, right? And the rest and restore phase just never really happened because it wasn't something that I had honed into, right? Even though my mom was constantly telling me, hey, you're gonna hit a wall, I need you to slow down. Like If there was a day that I needed to take a break, my mom would happily write me out of school and say, she's going to take a mental break today, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes. Which you needed, I'm sure.
oh, I totally did. I totally, and you know, as I was an athlete and when we had like great food, I don't think it was ever a module in my home as to, you know, we have what was good for you, vegetables and this and that, but it wasn't the way of what I know now, right? With herbs and a sense of healing involved, right? Like it's not that you just eat this food for this reason, but you know, it's not about, we definitely weren't having juices, right? We weren't wheat shots. We weren't doing any of that, right?
Yes.
Which I'm sure a lot of us can definitely identify, right?
Yes, we kind of ate what we thought tastes good a lot of times, you know. We weren't even so much consciously processing health, you know, and is this going to keep me well, you know? Right.
So as and my mom always used to call me her sick child because I had scarlet fever as a child. So when people ask like, well, when did this all start? Like, when did you just hit a brick? And I'm like, well, I was always going through something. My mom like never treated me like less than or showed me like you're sick or you have these things wrong with you, right? To hinder my growth. But she was always very in my ear of, hey, you need to kind of rest. You need to chill out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So as I got in my 20s and I was just go, I think it was like later towards my career because it was a sales high performance job where I'm managing branches, and then you're also like an affiliate community service, helping other branches. You know, the better you do, the more it gets tacked onto your responsibility, right? And I just was still deeply in that people pleasing phase of never able to know, right? Like I'm like, no, I can handle it. I can handle it. Let me go. Let me continue. And I slowly but surely started having to need more surgeries. I had to get my tonsils taken out. I had to I was building lipomas and they couldn't tell me why. They had to take out like they were like the size of softballs out of my back. Out of my arms. Just progressed. Like my inflammation was higher. Like, and I wasn't in that balance of mind, body, and soul to really listen to my body, right? And because of my age, like, and it was like this, there was a vast things going on, right? And it got to the point where I like was dizzy. I was basically bedridden. I was in pain. I couldn't, I couldn't focus. I couldn't concentrate. Like just a lot of different things going on with my body. And I literally hit a wall. Like after one surgeries, I was unable to like make a bounce back, like just fatigue at a whole other level. And, you know, it was my first primary doctor that I had at a point where she's like, this is over my head. I need you to find somebody else to help with all this, because she was just the basic practitioner. And I respected her so much for that, because she was just your basic fan care doctor, right?
Right.
So, you know, I went through this whole journey of finding my dream team, is what I called them, right? Like I literally had to break down. Of course, I took my my level of like fastness or my type A and took that and put that into my health.
Yeah,
I wanted to know what was going on.
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah.
Yeah, because I never want to take away from being like who you are. And if you're like a high productive, high energized person, that's amazing. But it's like you have to be able to balance it. And that's what I was missing, was my balance. Yeah. And unfortunately, like this is something like my autoimmune will be something I struggle with forever, because we don't recognize, you know, there's no going back and rechanging the course of things that you've done. There's just to build upon that and to learn, right? And it's for a reason, right? Like I don't ever want to go back to that unbalanced and unhealthy level of living, right? Because constantly there's no rest and restore. That's like my favorite time now.
But it's so true. You know, it's like sometimes we have to like hit our rock bottom for us to realize that we need to, you know, do something different, you know, to actually restore ourselves and come back. I've had moments like that too, you know, where I'm like, oh my God, why am I sick for no reason? Because you burn out and you're stressed out and you're doing too much and you're people pleasing and you're doing all these things. You hit your bottom. You hit your bottom. I say this all the time. If we don't really take care of ourselves, self-care, illness will find you.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And it was the biggest thing where I learned to understand that your health is ultimately your wealth. You know, if you don't have that, I mean, you literally can't do anything.
I love that.
And you don't.
Your wellness is your wealth.
And if it is, and if you don't understand that, it's like the first time you're faced with something like that, you will realize it. Like if you've been through a surgery, if you've been through anything of that sort, you will definitely, I mean, we just got out of the pandemic, right? Everybody, I'm sure, dealt with some sort of level of illness, right? A lot of us ended up getting COVID, right?
Right.
And I think that put a lot of people in perspective as to what it's like. You know, a lot of us chronic autoimmune people who are from home, do a lot of things from home. It opened a whole world for us. My autoimmune is actually, they're using that to find more things out about long-term COVID. It's called myalgic encephalomyelitis. So they're using a lot of new research, and it was under-researched before. Yes. And now that people are comparing it, and they're like, wow, we had no idea this is what you guys go through. Like lights will bother you. It's not like you're just laying in bed watching TV. Like it is excruciating, right?
Got it. Yeah. And I think it's so misunderstood because it's not something you can just see on the outside, you know.
Right.
A lot of it's happening inside. So people go, oh, well, you seem happy and bubbly, or you seem okay, you know.
Right.
What's really bugging you? But like you said,
and you know, even when I'm traveling, I get that stare a lot of like, why are you in a wheelchair? Why are you being carted from point to point? Why does she get reward? It's like, you don't know, not every, and I think we have that misconception of disabilities as far as what it looks like and what it should look like, right?
Right.
It's not a walk in the park. Like I look all put together right now, but on my daily, it doesn't look like this. Like I'm coming in and out of MRIs, like a CAT scan, blood tests. I'm walking around in sweats, a hoodie, and a beanie. And sometimes it's like I could even be too sick just to go to the doctor to make it there. It's more stress on my body to get there, than it is for me to go in. And it was funny because, well, it wasn't funny, but a couple months back, I had an allergic reaction. And I was kind of like, oh, I'll just take some Benadryl for it. And it wasn't until the next morning, like the nurse was like, you need the ER, you're in anaphylactic shock. Like when you're a chronic individual, and I was telling her, I'm like, you have something wrong with you all the time, right? And you're in this battle where you kind of lose your sense of emergency. You know, the sense of urgency of, well, is this the time to go in? Isn't this the time to go in? Because, and my doctor and I joked about it because he's like, you'd be paying rent there. Like if you went every time something was wrong or you felt like, you know, and it's so true. And I was like, well, this was one of the times that I had to go.
Right. So what's been, I guess, one of your hardest moments, you know, with autoimmune disease? What was like one of the hardest moments where you feel like you had to bounce back from?
I would say there's two things. So the first one was learning that part of it is our mental wiring. A lot of us are told that it's in our head, like in the beginning, hypochondriac, or, you know, a lot of people are dismissed even by their family. And it's really sad that, you know, just because the doctor can't figure it out, it's a lot of, because the process is like this, you're not chronic till after 6 months of being sick. Right. And then after that is when they start to take you serious and or may not. And they try to start looking for, okay, well, let's do these blood tests. Let's do the ANA. Let's do your different types of like trying to see if you are a marker for autoimmune. And then sometimes those tests aren't even relative, right? Because they're all scientific based and we don't all share the same markers. So and I learned that from my naturopathic, right? Like I literally had to fight it differently. Like while it wasn't just with Western medicine, because mine was started where I literally couldn't do anything was like in 2013, 14. We didn't have any of this keto. We didn't have any of the knowledge that we have today, right?
Right.
But I find that even now it's more so. So a lot of people get told it's in your head, right? You're just manifesting these soma types of illnesses where, you know, you're dealing with depression, but you're not really identifying that. So it's coming out in your body, right? They're being just dismissed for that. I think that's one of the hardest things we battle, and it takes away from the fact of learning to understand that it is part in our brain, but it's chemical. It's more how we're wired, not necessarily our thoughts, not necessarily while those have some to do with like getting by day to day, I don't think that that's like why you're sick, right? Like it's not your fault. So I think the biggest eye opener for me is I was in a course for understanding pain at Sutter. They had it. It was free, and it was how like your brain is wired to pain. Which was actually the best thing ever, because while I was like grunting, going in there like, they're just going to tell me it's all in my head and it's not in my head, I actually learned how to like trick my brain, give myself an understanding of, okay, this is day 1 of my surgery, day 2, day 3, when I'm in this recovery process, I know that by day 3, my pain level is going to go higher. So I'm not going to be in pain as days go on, right? So I think that was one of the hardest things to embrace. But once I did embrace that, I mean, it was an eye opener. So as well as not hurting hurts, or not moving hurts just as much as moving. When you're dealing with a lot of joint pain, a lot of fascia pain, even muscle pain, I I had a doctor mistakenly tell me not to move because my back, after I took in they took the lipomas from my back, they had basically shut it with glue like this, and they were horizontal. So anytime I'd bend down, it felt like my skin was ripping, right?
Wow.
And he told me, well, just don't do it then, which I understand that, but it ended up being worse because I ended up having to fight a trophy in my back.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. So I think that was another thing as well, is learning that even though you're in pain, your body is designed to move, right? We're designed to stretch, to, even if you have to do floor stretch, anything as small as that. I think that was one of my hardest lessons as well.
I love that. So would that kind of be something, if someone was going through something like you're going through, would that be a part of the advice you would give them, that, our bodies are designed to move, and you still have to, even through the pain? Or what would you say to them as, a way of dealing with it, or a way to have vitality even in the midst of it?
I would say, for one, and it's funny you ask that, and that's where Spoonie Vibes really comes from, is I've had people come to me and ask me, hey, I just was diagnosed with lupus. Like, I have no idea where to start, and you don't, because you're so overwhelmed and want to get better. And you start, like, it's almost like you can stress yourself out trying to over critique and understand, and especially if you don't have like an amazing doctor, that's the hardest part. So I would first tell them they're validated, have them, take a breath and let them know, one step at a time. But I would also, my biggest thing is, I say, you're going to need a box. And you're going to need a superficial box. Because when you're in your worst moments, you not think of, okay, what do I need now? Right? Like, you need to be able to go to this box and pick something. So whether it's, I need to just meditate or listen to some binaural beats, that's all you're doing, right? Just lying there, soft music, that's it. I would definitely say, like, as far as, like, there has to be something in there for your mind, body, and soul, right? Those three things. So yes, I would leave maybe like a little stretch band or a little wheel. I have a little like yoga wheel that'll I just go up and down, and I'll curve on that, right? But definitely, I mean, because everyone's different. There are some people who are in a situation where movement isn't going to be physically movement, right? Because they're going to need to rest and restore.
Right.
And part of it is relaxing everything, but also in a small space of stretching, because I had to learn how to move differently too. I was a gym rat, and I was like, oh, I want to get on the treadmill, and I want to do that. On a treadmill, like, I can overexert myself. So while movement is great, my biggest thing is balance.
Yes. Move at your pace. And I love what you said, Anita, about the invisible box. I love that, even for people, just in general, for wellness. Like, right. I always talk about having your cup full, but going to a box and pull something out, that's amazing. Right. I think that's just amazing. A way to kind of frame it where you can go and you're like, okay, this is going on in my life. Let me go to my box and pull something out that I can use to kind of help me move along, whether it's meditation.
And I used to have a sheet of paper, right? Yeah. Like meditation, and it would be already saved in my YouTube. Like if I feel these things, like I would literally spend my time organizing that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that if you deal with energy defying, I mean, we all are in that space, right? If we're depressed or if we have anxiety, if you're in the midst of an anxiety attack, like it's the same thing. You're frantic, right? You need to be able to go feel something tangible, that's going to take your mind off of that moment, so you can go through it, but still like have some comfort of this is temporary, right?
Right. And well, who's that one person, Anita, that have had that influence or just that support for you, that, you know, in your life? Who's that one person that's always been there or done that for you?
You know, my parents are amazing. I love them. They are a huge influential piece. But when it came to my illness, I mean, their hands-on, ready approach to deal with everything, and to understand where I was coming from. And when I had to move back into their home, and you know, they were there 120% supportive. But the person who really taught me how to rest and restore was my younger sister. She was the caretaker of, like, upon caretaker. She was a caretaker. She taught me so much in how to take my medicine, how to keep track of my medicines, right? Because I was lost. I was physically lost. Like, I didn't know how to just sit down and color. I didn't know, like, a slower pace of things, right? Her and I were like, right. Her and I were definitely that. She was that carefree, flowing, just authentic individual living her life, her pace. And I didn't know how to do that. I was, like I said, you know, so for her, she taught me a lot. And she, even to the point where she recently passed in June, last year of June. And I had gone through some of her journals, and I had found, like, notes of, like, my upcoming surgeries that she had already written out, of things that I was going to, and the new, like, devices that I was going to be using, and how that needed to be done. Yeah. So, I mean, hands down.
So I certainly take away that this is not something you want to do alone.
Oh, it's not. Definitely not. And that's why it saddens me to see a lot of people lose their family member because their family members just understand and aren't as supportive. And I think that is why Spoonie Vibes is so big for me. And so important, because if I didn't have my parents' support, if I didn't have a caretaker for a sister, like, I could only imagine the obstacles that I would have had to endure. Like, I was going through pain and felt nobody understood me. Like, I was a raging bee at sometimes, you know,
yeah.
I definitely wasn't the pleasantest person in the beginning, and finding my way through it, because you're scared and you're in a lot of pain, and you don't feel like there's a lot of people that can you, you know? And I was just really lucky that they understood that and had those hard conversations. Like, we talked about death. We talked about my fears. We spoke about, like, you're not feeling suicidal, or, you know, there was no barrier as to what we weren't talking about in my household as to my illness and
that's
my
so
journey.
Awesome. That's so awesome. And I would imagine that allowed you to learn how to give yourself some grace.
Yes. I did. I definitely did. Grace, love, and compassion.
Yes.
Because that was a lot of things I was lacking. While I was looked upon as, like, a strong individual, I had to learn how to be eternally strong. And I mean, we're all still challenged every day in life because there's something new that we have to address.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So what would be when you talk about rest and restore, which I love that because it is everything we all need. But when you talk about rest and restore, what would be the biggest thing you would want the audience to take away from your story, your journey? What would be the biggest thing you would want them to take away from all of this?
Um, it could be as small as 5 minutes of a small meditation guided. It could be talking to your therapist, or it can be as big as going to a Caribbean island, and relaxing and allowing yourself that grace. I definitely, when I was at my worst, I took a Hail Mary trip and went to Grenada. I was like, I need herbs and spices, and had to be introduced to another way of life.
Ooh,
And yeah, and that down there, it really, I worked with some herbalists, and it really connected me with all the medications I was taking. If my body wasn't able to absorb just the basic nutrients from my food, how are these medicines going to help me, right? How are they going to contribute to the root cause versus just paying attention to the symptoms are telling me there's something out of whack, but it's not explaining the root cause, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
So I really feel, the ocean, paying attention to being in nature, one of the best places that I find my rest and restore. Down there, even like they don't have, well, they have Wi-Fi and things of such. There's not that many people on the island. Mm-hmm. There's not that many vibrations. We don't think about, we're energetic beings. So we don't think about, our neighbor's Bluetooth, our neighbor's Wi-Fi. If you live in the city, that all of that can be affecting you as well, right? Yeah. So I would say pay attention to your environment that you're trying to relax and renew in, and don't just, of course, we all don't have that ability to just hop on a plane and go to an island where, and we may not have those resources, but if you can get into nature or some sort of nature, that hands down, even if it's just grounding and walking outside with no shoes, that alone can help you on so many levels.
I love that. So embrace nature as part of your wellness, because like you said earlier, wellness is your wealth. It starts with wellness. If you don't have that, you don't have anything else.
Right.
Right. So how will people get a hold of you, Anita? What do you have going on? Do you have a business or book or anything you want to introduce to the audience?
I'm currently getting my website to have something up. I have as well, I'm also on social media, so you can find me Spoonie Vibes. That's I have the there's not a lot there right now. Like I said, we're just getting our imprint as far as our social gathering, and me getting to a place where I can get a virtual assistant and help, and because like I said, my energy, like I can't go as fast as I used to, but I definitely have that want to get that information out. So Spoonie Vibes on Instagram, and soon there will be a website up for people to be able to check that out as well.
That is so awesome, man. I think you're beautiful. You got lots of energy. You look so vibrant. You look wonderful. And I think just people hearing your story, obviously it's going to help someone, because there's someone where you were, there's someone who needs to go to where you are, there's someone that needs to tap into what you're saying and what you're doing. So I appreciate you sharing your insight and your story, because, stories give us hope. Mm-hmm. That we can do it too. It is really our superpower. and everyone has one. And so I want to ask the audience what's their story. So you can also reach us at Brown Sugar Wellness on our .com if you're interested in being a part of this healing movement through stories. And we just want to thank Anita so much for sharing with us, and we appreciate everything she's out there doing with Autoimmune and in her business and in her site. So make sure you check her out. Thank you guys. Have a good one.